Hey there, students. Welcome back to Life Science. I'm glad that you're here. Good to have you with this video. We're going to start with Chapter 3 of Unit 1, and we're going to start a chapter on cells and how we'll learn how important they are and all the different features and differences between those cells. So today we're going to talk about cell theory and what that means. Now, remember, a theory is something that explains a phenomenon in nature. Okay, it doesn't. It explains it, and it's been tested over time. And so this theory is something that can be improved upon. Okay, so remember, a law doesn't change. A law in science is based on a mathematical principle, usually attached with some number that is a phenomenon in science or the universe, and it doesn't change. A theory is a working understanding of an idea that has been tested over many years, but it can change and improve over time. So even the things I'm going to share with you now, literally right now, science are improving and understanding more about all of this. So when we talk about cell theory, here's what cell theory is. Cell theory says it is the basic unit, that the cell is the basic unit and structure of all living things. Remember, one of the 5 things that makes up all living things, it has to be made of cells. So the cell is the smallest unit in which life processes can be carried out. It doesn't mean that there aren't smaller things than the cell. It is the smallest unit that can be where life and processes can be carried out. So you must have a cell and the things that happen in the cell for order for you or a living thing to be considered alive. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about the history of the cell. We'll talk a little when we talk about this in class. We'll watch a video on Hans and Zacharias Johnson or Janssen, and they invented the microscope literally by accident. They were playing around with some lenses that would go on the eyes, so what they called spectacles, and they started moving the lenses this in this direction in front of one another, and they noticed they were able to see things that are very small became very large when they looked through these 2 lenses. So they were the first ones to invent what's now called the microscope between 1590 and 1610. And then Robert Hooke was a scientist who first discovered seeing cells under a microscope. He was looking at quark cells, and this is what a quark cell looks like up here. He was the first person to actually see plant cells under the microscope. And there are several others in the book here that talk about different discoveries and different scientists. I'm not going to go into those in too much detail, just highlight a few. Matthias Schleiden. Okay, he viewed plant parts and he noticed that plants were made of cells and they had different parts within the cells. So here's a picture of some plant cells right here, and they have different structures within them. And then the one that's important about plant cells is that Robert Brown observed the nucleus. He actually observed the nucleus of the cell. So this is where some important things about cell theory. The main thing to understand about cell theory is this. All living things are composed of at least one or more cells. So if you're only one cell, you're called unicellular. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in other lessons, or multicellular. Okay, meaning many cells. Okay, the other part of this theory is that cell is the basic unit of life. That to be alive, you must be made of cells, and that all chemical reactions of a living thing occur within its cells. So one thing that is to understand is that the chemical reactions that happen in your body, in animals' body, in plants, even bacteria, even unicellular or single-celled organisms, the chemical reactions for that living thing happen inside the cell. And that all cells come from other cells. Okay, for cells reproduce themselves. Again, that's another part of being alive, that it can reproduce itself. So, as much as we love our COVID Beethoven now with his bag on his head, this version of Beethoven, this bust of Beethoven made of plaster, is not alive. The original Beethoven, he was alive, but this Beethoven, not alive. All right, so that is the basics of cell theory. So you should kind of see these and understand how these would apply, these 4 basic principles of cell theory. So what we're going to talk about next time is what makes up the cell. And what makes up the cell. So that's going to be it. Just a short lesson for this time on cell theory. The main thing I want you to grasp and understand are these 4 points about cell theory. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.